Welcome into the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, and Matt Eberflus is no longer your defensive coordinator. The Cowboys making the move this morning to fire Eberflus as the DC, not dragging it out, at least by their own standards, which was certainly a nice change of pace there for the Cowboys. Eberflus's time is over as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. That was the easy, obvious step one that had to be done. Now some of the more complicated, challenging aspects of improving the team, everything else on that front. Several super chats to get to, which I think we can do the super chat weigh-in with the player top, potentially. I think that works. Know what I'm talking about? Yeah, do that one. I don't know if the original ones actually came in because you hadn't inputted the stream key, but several from CJ, a couple from Matt Temple as well. We'll get to all of your comments. We'll react in the moment to the Eberflus firing, go to some replacements, and more here on today's show. Cowboys firing Matt Eberflus as their defensive coordinator, a move that simply had to be done by the organization. It was not the type of move you couldn't do. You can't have the worst defense stats ever and not bring him back. CJ's third super chat. Are the yellow and green ones in there? This is not his most recent one. There we go. So read the L first. So we'll do that, CJ. Real question is, what kind of hire will this be? Will the head coach be empowered to hire his guy and continue the direction he envisions, or will Beavis and Butthead F it up again? Who's Beavis and who's Butthead, by the way, of the Jones boys? Great nicknames. I want to believe that this will be Matt Eberflus's hire. I think based on the interview list, will be Brian Schottenheimer to replace Matt Eberflus. Based on the interview list, I think we'll have a decent feel for it. The fact that they've already moved on from Eberflus and did not drag this out, the way they normally drag out their coaching decisions, I actually think bodes pretty well for the Cowboys as an organization. That they did not drag this one out. They did not move on, a week from now. They did it within essentially 48 hours of the season ending. I think that actually does bode well. I have to see it though first. I'm tapped out in the blind faith department for this team, as I'm sure many of you guys are as well. Follow up from CJ. We have our hopes for something better, but what in ownership's history suggests that that's actually what at all will happen? Again, it's a valid point of, is this team actually going to go do those things? I'm not sure. It would be awesome if they did, but I think it is a valid question mark to say, are they just going to go with their normal MO? I know Bobby Bell tweeted out, I think, maybe 7 to 10 days. If you get that, I think that's actually a really good sign. That they're not, if they do a real search, by the way, with some asterisks involving some of your top names, may or may not actually be available. We'll have my replacements list for you guys on today's show. So stay tuned for that. CJ also said, morning, Tom. Read the L super first. Got you over there. Matt Temple, a $20 super chat. I'm going to do this as well here. We'll get to it when we get to the super chat menu. You guys want to do the Big Baller Venmo raffle today? Want to do that today? Feels like a good day to do it. We'll go to it later, but I'll put it in the live chat. Yeah. Matt, the last time we had back-to-back losing seasons, Dave Campo was the coach. I hope Jerry is embarrassed enough to do a real coaching search and not bargain bin shop in this year in free agency. Excuse me. PSF the Eagles. Yeah, I agree. You need a real change. You did not hire. Brian Schottenheimer did not hire Matt Eberflus. Now he in the end signed off on it. But that was a little bit in the same way of we had unanimous approval on Micah Parsons, and I kind of feel like some of that was, is that what you want, boss? Sure. Not yes, he has to go. More if that's what you think is best, I will ride with you. So this for me is, you can't just replace the defense coordinator. You have to do a real search and get more talent. You don't have the personnel. If the Cowboys sit there and say we have the personnel, I think they're lying to themselves and us. Jotman said the devil is dead. Had a negative thought I'm not going to go to, and I'll skip it. The Basement Boys, I see a play for Jonathan Gannon. I would not be surprised if he's on the list. He's not going to get a head coaching job somewhere else. He has defensive coordinator experience. Eagles fans didn't love him, but I actually thought he was solid in Arizona. I thought Nick Rallis was also doing a good job on the defensive side of the ball. The offense fell apart this year, but they also added like 0 offensive pieces last season. They had bad quarterback play. It's only so much you can do. He is on my list. He's not number 1, but I think that's a valid interview. Also has good familiarity with Clayton Adams, by the way. Merjanic, how about adding dirty for play calling DC? So I do want to make note of this. Play calling versus non-play calling is not a differentiator in the eyes of the NFL. So the Seahawks can and would block the Cowboys from interviewing Aden Dirty as long as he is under contract. And I'm pretty sure he's under contract. Normally those are like 3-year deals. I'd be pretty surprised if he wasn't under contract here. So Aden Dirty is not really going to be an option for the Cowboys unless Seattle was like, sure, you can go. And I don't know why Mike McDonald would do that. Adding an assistant head coach title, play calling duties, doesn't matter. The way it works is head coach cannot be blocked. If you are any coordinator level, if you're interviewing for a head coach, the team cannot block you. Coordinator level hires have to be an assistant coach. If you have a coordinator title, even if you're the play caller or not, does not matter. CJ DeYoung III, another $10 super chat. We'll go through all these, go through our menu today. Jerry is definitely Beavis. And who are the 3% in the poll that wanted Eberflus to stay? Honest answers here. People having fun and trolling. People who are friends and family of Matt Eberflus. Or Eagles fans. That's how it normally goes. Which is funny, but I would be surprised if that, if it was anyone other than like actually in the Cowboys' best rooting interests trying to go down that path. Matt Meyer, I think I pronounced that right, Matt. If not, I'm terribly sorry. Giving you your entries. Never root for someone to lose their job. Never want to root for someone to lose their job. But from a business standpoint, this had to be done. Defense is terrible. Let Shotty do his defense coordinator search and bring in his other assistant coaches. Yeah. I think it was Joe Hoyt said, rest of the decisions to be made based on who the new DC is. Most of the Cowboys' defensive coaches were Matt Eberflus guys. He got to pick his staff. So I would assume that the defensive staff is going to be significantly overhauled this upcoming offseason. Super Chat menu on today's show. Any Super Chat is a shout-out, a $5 raffle entry. I don't know what we're going to give away yet for the Packers playoff game we will be live for. So lots of lives this week, funnily enough. I think we're going to be live Monday, Tuesday, not Wednesday, Thursday, and then I'm off Friday, Sunday, and we're live again Saturday. So that's kind of fun how that works out there. $10 is 3 raffle entries. $50 is a shot. And $100 is the beer bong. If you guys want to do it, it requires the entries. We can do the Big Baller only raffle. It's at What Going Downy on Venmo. $50 to enter. At What Going Downy. We do it for special events, weird delays in the game. Venmo 50/50 raffle at What Going Downy. If you want in on that one, I will put that link in the live chat for you. It is if you guys want to do it. It's tricky, I know, but at What Going Downy for the Venmo 50/50 Big Baller raffle. I'm going to edit it to 50. That's probably the best play there instead of 20. Yeah. Big Ballers only raffle. This is my favorite one to do. We don't do it very often. Once they get going in, it gets fun and gets chaotic there. So if you want in to the Big Ballers only Venmo 50/50 raffle at the very end of today's live stream, if we get enough, at What Going Downy on Venmo, $50 to enter. We'll check it on that kind of throughout today's game or today's. See, I'm in the habit of games for Venmos. Today's live stream with Matt Eberflus out as the Cowboys defensive coordinator after just one season with the Cowboys. The pin poll, by the way, is were the Cowboys right to fire the defensive coordinator, Matt Eberflus? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. 98% are voting yes. There's 463 votes times 2% means there are 9 votes of people who did not vote in favor of yes, it was time to fire Matt Eberflus. Yeah, I think it's 9 Now it's up to 3% at 473. So that's probably 10. Oh, wow, that's only up to 14 votes. The trolls are having fun. That's the way I interpret that one. Trolls are having fun. So, it had to be done. It can't just be Eberflus. It can't. It has to be more than just Eberflus being gone. But that was absolutely something that needed to be done for the Cowboys. They had to move on from Eberflus. Otherwise, none of us were going to have confidence in the Cowboys, at all. So, with that in mind, what is your confidence level in the Cowboys finding a new defensive coordinator? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. 1 to 10 is your scale. I am curious how this search goes, what their approach is. Are they going to do more than 3 interviews like they always do? Every organization worth their salt has a list of names that they would have interest in the event someone leaves, gets fired, whatever. I'm sure Schottenheimer has his list. Hopefully it's not 3 names and 2 of them to fulfill the Rooney Rule, and that's it. Now, granted, if I'd do it in a heartbeat if you could just get Brian Flores. We'll talk about him later on. There are some complications there. But I think they're going to have to be aggressive and go actually pursue a real DC and not just pick someone they know or was a head coach. That's been their MO in the past. 3, 5, 7, 6, 3, 5, 4, 6, 6. -3 because Jerry will interfere. 8, 5, 6. Keep the votes coming. Ed, are you overjoyed that Eberflus is Eber gone? Hashtag kicker love. I would like to point out that I think I was the Falcons, or not the Falcons, the Steelers Ravens playoff game once again proved the kickers are just not people again. Also, I should have tweeted out, but I'm sitting there watching. I'm like, they should give the ball to Derrick Henry. He might even score. And they went to the kneel. I'm like, I don't know. That seems like a little bit unnecessary there. Now, it wouldn't have mattered. He missed it from a deep distance. Way right. But that was the issue there. The 2NA killer. Whoever they hire as defensive coordinator has the drive to push for good picks in the draft despite the boys' tendencies. So we'll do a video on this probably next week or so, or maybe after they hire the DC. The defensive coordinators have had a lot of influence in the Dallas Cowboys draft picks. So it's not like the coach is supposed to save the Cowboys draft picks. I think at times the coaches, especially on the defense side of the ball, have been too involved in betting on the wrong types of guys in the end. Mozzie, I think, is probably the one that has to be worn the most by Will McClay. I think that one was most on his shoulders there. But Leothau was a heavy Mike Zimmer influence pick. And he was fine under Zimmer, and then horrible under Eberflus. Overshown, Junior Fehoko, Eric Scott. Fehoko and Eric Scott were heavy Dan Quinn influence picks. Like Sam Williams was a Dan Quinn pick. Kelvin Joseph was heavy Dan Quinn influence. Now, McClay and the scouting staff also own those mistakes, but the defensive coaching staff and all the changes you've made and the schematic adjustments there, I do think have mattered in some of your issues drafting. They have to draft better, period. I think all of us are in agreement on that one, but I do think that is a key element there. Okay, next up here, what were we going to? Oh, who do you want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Who do you guys want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? I only just got the push on 30. Doesn't make any sense. It's really weird to get the late push. Whatever, it's fine. Who do you want as that Cowboys next defensive coordinator? I'll give some shout-outs as these come in. My list is coming later on in today's live show, so stay tuned for that. It'll be available on demand if you guys have, work or something. Man, I never sneeze on air. I hate when I do that. Al Harris, Brian Flores, Jerry Jones. I'm going to jump. Flores, Al Harris, Jim Schwartz, Brian Flores, not Al Harris. Jim Schwartz or Raheem Morris, Flores, Al Harris, Jim Leonhard, Herman Boone, and now we're talking. Jim Leonhard. Got Channing Tatum in there. I don't know about that one. Thank you. Rock and roll. Buddy Ryan. Of note, not Rex. I'm not doing that. I'm not. I think that is such a bad idea. Jim Leonhard, Flores, Harris, or Morris. Anyone is better than Eberflus. Mike Tomlin. That's not going to happen. Ray Lewis. Let's see. Matt Eberflus. Dr. Doom. I said Buddy. I know you said Buddy. I'm just acknowledging not Rex is the next step there. Todd Bowles, if fired. Yep. Brian Flores, Raheem Morris, Sean Lee. Open spot as the linebackers coach whenever he wants it. The fact that he hasn't taken that, I kind of feel like he maybe doesn't want to. Dion has never been a defense coordinator, so no. Kirby's not leaving a better job. Now we're just naming Cowboys legends as well. Someone said Nico Harrison. Jerry Jones speed run. Hate self. Jonathan Gannon is in there. Flores again. Jeff Ulbrich, who I don't think is going to stay in Atlanta. I do think Jeff Ulbrich is a good name to monitor. We'll talk about him later on in the show as well. Bryant Haynes, the Indiana DC. I doubt he leaves, but I think he did a great job for the Hoosiers. Antonio Pierce. I don't love that, actually. He had like a year as the Arizona State defensive coordinator. Don't love it. We're obviously not hiring Romo. Brian Flores. Mike Pettin, I hate it. I actually don't want that at all. D'Amico Ryans, obviously not going to leave. Aubrey Pleasant or Jim Leonhard, looking for a first-time DC. Two good first-time DC names. I mean, as I look at my list, like I had one. I only had two first-time DCs on my list, and those are both the names on there, funnily enough. Datwin. There you go. Luke Kuechly. God, he's so smart. I think he was briefly doing stuff with the Panthers and kind of like stepped away. Leslie Frazier, Lovie Smith. Chris Shula is not going to leave the Rams for anything but a head coaching job, but that's a great name. Utah's fired DC. Well, Kyle Whittingham, the head coach, took the Michigan job, and the Utah DC is now their head coach, Morgan Scaley. Matt Patricia from Ohio State. I don't hate it, but I don't love it. I don't like Ken Norton as a name. He has been a DC. He was bad in Seattle, though. I don't love that one. If it's a real answer, Flores. Appreciate that. Joe Witt, he'll be available. If McCarthy gets a job, I feel like he ends up on McCarthy's staff because I think he's going to get fired in Washington. Already lost his job. Durante Jones is a fun name, actually, there from Donnell. If you watched our 35 name list, I did have that one on there as well. This is the Super Chat menu on today's show. Any Super Chat gets you gets you a shout out on the show. $5 into our to-be-determined Packers game raffle. $10 is 3 raffle entries. $50 is a shot, and $100 is the beer bong. If we get at least 3 entries, we will do the Venmo 50/50 Big Ballers Only raffle. That link is in the comment section right now for the Big Ballers Only Venmo 50/50 raffle. Not sure why it reset on you, but that makes sense. At What Going Downey for the Venmo 50/50 raffle. Big Ballers Only. We only do it for special events. We need the 3 entries. If we don't get it, that's fine. If we get 1, 2, I'll send it back. No sweat there. At What Going Downey for the Venmo 50/50 Big Ballers Only raffle. Another Super Chat coming in here as well from Merjanic, a $2 Super Chat. It says, does hiring Gannon give us inside info on Philadelphia? I mean, yes, but also no. He hasn't been in Philadelphia since 2022. How much are you really going to learn at that point that you haven't already learned from playing against them twice a year? Now, whatever you might want to learn, you could probably get an interview. The smart teams, by the way, that's why I would keep an eye out for, the Giants interviewing Clayton Adams. That's what the Eagles did years ago the first time they interviewed Kellen Moore, and then eventually had him as OC, was they kind of kept their eye out for stuff of, let's see what info we can get on the Cowboys. I think that type of thing is normally pretty solid. So, We'll get into we don't need to do the reset, so we can just kind of go through the flow. There's no need to do that there. So, again, folks, the Cowboys have fired Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator. Overall, on today's show, we will break down the Eberflus firing, why it had to happen, get to all of your super chats as they come in as well. We will have Matt Eberflus replacements for you as well. I have my top 10. And then a bunch of names I also considered because it was I think I had like 30 on the midseason update, so that was tricky to be able to whittle it down. And I'm sure someone I don't have on there is going to get interviewed. I'll have a Cowboys mailbag for you as well, so you can keep your comments and super chats coming via hashtag Cowboys or skip that line altogether via super chat. We'll go to Z-Stat Official, the $5 super chat. Then we'll just go to the previously scripted stuff. You don't need to do the intro video. It's just fine. Z-Stat Official, let me get you into the raffle here as well. Any decent coaches to keep on this defensive staff? Someone like White Cotton, I wouldn't want to leave, especially now with Big Q. I think White Cotton is like the only name you'd probably consider here. And if your new DC says, no, I want my guy, I'm not dedicated to keeping him. Dave Borgonzi, Andre Curtis, David Overstreet, all those guys were Matt Eberflus hires. Like, they all came with him from the Bears. J.J. Clark was an outside hire, but he's an assistant. Darian Thompson has been here a little bit, but he's secondary in nickels. Like, Brian Bing is the assistant defensive line coach, but like, does that really move the needle necessarily for you? He was also a Bears guy. So, like, maybe White Cotton, but I don't think it, like, matters. I'm not going to let Aaron White Cotton get in the way for me from hiring my defensive coordinator that I want. If that guy says, yeah, I like White Cotton, he can stay, great. If not, I'm moving on. It's not going to bother me in the end. Marco, a $10 super chat. Appreciate that, my friend. 3 entries for you. Thoughts on Overshown for next year? He's in the final year of his rookie deal. I understand that his first 3 years were marred by injury, but do you think next year he will break out? I thought we had the breakout coming before he got hurt last year. Now, I don't think he was as good before that, or this year. I thought he kind of struggled, wasn't as good. But I do think that he is a piece you have at linebacker and maybe the only true piece. I also don't think it should prevent you from getting in the way. I will say, I think I have to go in depth and double check this. I think he might actually be an RFA for the Cowboys after next year. Not a straight up restricted free agent or unrestricted free agent, because he didn't accrue a season in his first year. Let me double check that. I'm doing this all on the fly. Because he didn't play in year 1. Oh, well, I guess. Maybe he does count as an accrued season. Well, no, IR counts. Okay. Disregard. Let me read this off here. Accrued season for each year he was on. Full pay status for 10 regular season games, which in respect of status should not include games. Well, it doesn't include IR. No, reserve pup list. Okay, so I disregard. I don't think he's going to be. He'll be a straight up unrestricted free agent next year. Okay, disregard. Me being silly there. My bad. Anyway, to answer the question and not get off topic, I like him. I want to see good play next year, and if he has a great season, it's a good problem to have. It does suck. 3 years have been marred by injury, but when healthy and not playing under Matt Eberflus, he's been very good. I think that kind of matters. Ed says, hire Godzilla. At least the defense would listen to him. Yes, but could they understand him? Or would they just pee down their pants? It's impossible to say in the end. It's impossible to say. So I've yet to see any. Let me see if I can find Matt Eberflus's contract. That'd be nice to see. Let me see. I don't know what he was making or how long he was under contract for. Granted, there's no salary cap on coaches, so you can simply move on, and it doesn't actually matter anything in the end. Like, I know that Eberflus had a lot of influence on the personnel, too. That's how the Cowboys always operate, which is oftentimes annoying to me. Get to the Great Duke Bothers super chat here. Get that in for the raffle. We don't need a coach. We need players, too. Do you have a top free agent in mind? Is Earl Thomas still available? Drink, right? I'm going to respond to that in a second, too, just in the chat. Look, I think there's a lot of names. The first one that comes to me is Quincy Williams because he is brothers with Quinnen. The Cowboys need a linebacker, and that just certainly would fit needs, and I don't think he'd be crazy expensive. So, if those of you saying $4 million for Flus, I think that was actually more of his Bears salary. I know there was a report that he was making $4 million a year from Spotrac had been cited by a betting site, but I'm pretty sure that was actually just the Bears' salary is what he was making in Chicago. So I don't actually think that $4 million salary is very accurate. Because McCarthy was making about $4 million. I think Eberflus was making about 4.5. I know there was one article that said that in December, but Spotrac never actually put it out there. So I don't actually think that $4 million is the right figure, by the way. Oh, what did Silksucker say? Looking at Pat Fleermoose as a Matt Eberflus replacement. It's funny. All right, the breaking news of the day: the Cowboys have fired Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator. He lasts just one season as the Cowboys DC. It had to be done. They had to move on from Eberflus. It made no sense to keep him after the worst defensive season in Cowboys franchise history. Are you glad the Cowboys fired Matt Eberflus? I think the answer is yes. If you watched our early morning, like 5 minutes after it happened video, because we had pre-filmed it, that video is up to 1,204 likes already, which is a lot. Because we asked the exact same thing. I think it's a yes. And someone's going to say, oh, don't cheer for a man we fired. The man made millions of dollars coaching a game. He's fine. Like, sucks, whatever, but, like, he's awesome. He is fine. There's nothing to be worried about there. Like, I think this is a yes, he had to go. It's simple. Because this move had to be done. You had to fire Matt Eberflus. You couldn't just run it back with the worst defense ever. And I will give the Cowboys credit for, instead of Black Monday, what is it? Terrible Tuesday? I don't know. Whatever it is. I had something funnier, I thought, but maybe that's funny one day, and I can't say that one on the stream, though. Look, it had to be done. I get that it is yet another defensive coordinator search, and it stinks that you're doing 4 DCs in 4 years. Man, you can't just run it back. Like, retaining Eberflus for the sake of continuity would have been very stupid. Like, continuity is great if it's good. Continuity of the worst defense in franchise history is bad. Is really bad. I am disappointed. And frankly, I'm Timu Tuesdays. Someone said in the chat. Like, I'm disappointed. I am surprised, and I'm disheartened by how bad the defense was. But Eberflus does shoulder a significant amount of this blame. I get that they kind of set him up for some classic failure by trading with Micah Parsons, but he had plenty of personnel influence. It was his scheme that he wanted to run, and we've mentioned it before. You get up there and you talk about how important man coverage is. It all starts with man coverage. Your corners are built to play man, and then you don't play man, and you don't make the right changes. You blitz more. At times, like he was blitzing to fill a quota in games. Like, I got to get 6 blitzes in. Let's call 4 on the first drive and be set. Seriously? Like, he deserves to be fired too. It's not all his fault, but he had to go. Recent jobs, look, the frustrating part was the defenses got better in Indy and in Chicago. They did not get better in Dallas. Like, they were still allowing 30-plus points a game as the season wound down. Was it all Sean Lee in the end? Was that why the Cowboys' defenses look good? I don't know. In the end, the Cowboys were right to fire Matt Eberflus. They had to. There was no other option for this team. You guys can vote for me. Y for yes, N for no. And the Cowboys' defense allowed 511 points this season. That is the most, by a significant margin, in franchise history. It has never been done before. The points per game, in the end, finished second most at 30 points a game. That's just insane. It's concerning that 3 of the 5, there's 5 years here, right? 2 of the years were in their first 3 seasons, and that was Cold War era. It doesn't even count. The other 3 are all at the back end of this recent run in 2025, 2020, and 2024. Mike Nolan, Mike Zimmer, and Matt Eberflus. And it got, frankly, significantly worse this year. You can blame a little bit of 2020, 2024 on the quarterback got hurt, because that does impact the defense. But the offense was a top 5 unit for almost every game this year. The defense was a bottom 5 unit in basically every game that they played. They were 32nd in points per game, 30th in yards per game, 31st in yards per play, dead last in passing yards, 24th in rushing yards per game. The points allowed are insane. 24 or more allowed 12 times. I think they also allowed 25 at a similar clip there, by the way. And if they had just allowed 25 or 24 points a game going into the final 2 games of the year, they'd have had 10 wins. Actually, I guess maybe 11 with the Commanders game. They'd been a playoff team. They'd have beaten out the Packers for that playoff spot, funnily enough. 30 or more, they have 9, which is absurd. 34 was 7. You can't win games like that. 35 or more was 5. 40 or more was 3. What are we doing out here? Ridiculous. Now, I did not update the pre-Week 18 advanced stats. I didn't update them for Week 18. They don't change much. They did still finish last in EPA per play allowed, which is insane because the Bengals defense this year, up until like December, was on pace to be the worst defense in, there's an advanced stat called DVOA. They were on pace to be the worst. The Cowboys, by the way, finished bottom 4. They won 7 games with a bottom 4 of all-time defense. The 4 teams around them, each won 2 games, by the way. The other teams that won 7 games were quarterbacked by Dan Marino and Drew Brees. That is good company on offense and awful company to be in on defense there. Every number says they were bad. And I did these numbers. I didn't actually run it the full average update for Week 18, but the Cowboys allowed fewer points than the opposing team's average that was scored 1 time. Actually, Week 12 against the Eagles when their offense collapsed. And that was by like a point in the end. The Cowboys allowed 8.7 points per game going into Week 17 and 18, and it would have been pretty similar because the Giants dropped a bunch of points on you again, than the opposing team's average. So take out the Dallas Cowboys game that the opposing team played. Cowboys allowed a touchdown and more per game. If it felt like, man, offense having their best day ever of the season, it's because they were consistently, actually. That point per game difference, by the way, is the difference from the number 1 ranked defense and the 21st ranked defense or scoring offense. So you could have a below average offense and they would play like the best offense in the NFL on average against the Dallas Cowboys. Brutal. Now, it's not just about replacing Matt Eberflus. You have to do a lot of things here. You can't just fire him and say, oh, all our problems are fixed. Step 2 is now finding a new defensive coordinator. So what's your confidence level in the Cowboys doing that? 1 to 10 in the comments section of today's show. Maybe applaud isn't the right word. I am happy about the Cowboys not dragging their feet and making a quick decision relative by their own standards on that Eberflus. Tuesday I can deal with. If this had been Friday, I'd have been mad. A real search must happen now. Starting tomorrow, the Cowboys can interview candidates. I would not be surprised if someone like Jim Leonhard is high up on that interview list. Look, a real search has to happen. You can't just pick one guy and go. Now, if you can somehow do it with Brian Flores, different conversation. I guess that's the exception to the rule. But you're going to have to interview multiple people, multiple candidates. Some of your top guys you might have to wait on because they might be candidates at their current defensive coordinator gig, or they might have to do something else, or they might get a head coaching opportunity again still. So you might have to have some patience, but you can start that search process now. Don't just pick one guy and go. Do a real search in the end. And we will have updates for you on that defensive coordinator search. We'll have a bunch of shorts. Every time the Cowboys interview a candidate, have a short. I have a video for it as well. Or maybe merge a couple of the candidates together. But we're going to have you covered. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. We are one sub away from 241K actually here on the Cowboys Report, which is electric. So hit that sub button. I feel like we'll get it on today's live show. Oh, down to 2. Very sad. Someone heard an unsub. Hit that sub button for free Cowboys videos each and every single day. Multiple times a day, tons of updates for you. Look, the Cowboys had to replace Matt Eberflus. The defense stunk, and although he was not the biggest, the only reason, he was one of the biggest reasons why. He was not the only one. The Cowboys defense was historically bad. You don't get to be historically bad just because of one thing. The personnel needs help. It needs an overhaul. You can't just slap a new DC in this bad boy and say, we fixed it. We did it. We're done. You have to add talent. You need help at defensive end, at linebacker, at cornerback, and at safety. And then you need a new DC and a bunch of new assistants. You have to spend some money, Jerry. You can't just not spend it. Otherwise, what are we doing? So who do you guys want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? Make sure we don't have any Venmos here. Yep. So at what going down, we'll check on that. No big baller Venmos yet. It's okay. Okay. Get your votes in. We'll get to my list here in a little bit, but several super chats we're going to get to here as well. This is the super chat menu today. Any super is a shout out. $5 is a raffle entry. $10 is 3 raffle entries. $50 is a shot, and $100 is a beer bong. Look, I have not had lunch yet. I'm not a big breakfast guy either, so if you want to get me a little bit hammered before noon, this is your chance. This is your chance. From Jerry's McGriddle with extra salt on it. Downs at 12, then at 20, Bailey, Proctor, or Styles. It is early. It's only January. I don't know if Downs gets there if he does auto pick. Yes. I don't think Bailey gets to you at 20. In fact, I would even say it's 50-50 at best. He's there at 12 for you. I think there's a real chance Proctor's there at 20. He does scare me. I get Evan Neal vibes. I'm worried about that one. There's some he should be better with his skill set and traits than what he is right now. I don't know if Sonny Styles gets to you at 20. I would be all for it, though. Yeah, I look at a team like, honestly, under the radar, the NFC South, Bucs and Panthers, both could be candidates there. And they might both be in front of you. We'll see how it plays out. Brian Sanders, the second. What about Carroll or Morris at defensive coordinator? I know Nick Harris had mentioned Pete Carroll, and it is unique. And the defense for the Raiders wasn't that bad. He's also 75 when the season begins, and he hasn't been a true DC since 1993. It was 30 years ago. I'll mention him as well on the list. I don't love that. I just think I get that he's Schottenheimer connection there. 1996. 96, he was the Niners DC. I don't know. I feel like that's just a massive retread that it was really bad in Las Vegas, and I don't want to go down that path. Raheem Morris, I would have some interest in. He has been a good DC many times. I thought the stuff he has done, the thing that I like the most about, I think is actually what the Cowboys could use. Like more disguise coverages, more creativity, flexibility with how they do some disguises, and and some fronts and some blitzes and some coverage schematics. I know that he came up in the Buccaneers era with 2022 Bucks, which was was that Kiffin was the DC? Let me double check that. 2002 he was there. So yeah, it was Kiffin. I know he came up in the Tampa 2 system. The Falcons ran the least amount of cover 2 in the NFL last year. So you can go back and look at his time with, what he was doing as the Falcons DC back in 2020. What he was doing as a Rams defensive coordinator, what the Falcons were doing this year. They were doing, honestly, some Fangio stuff. I think Raheem Morris picked up some stuff this time in LA as the DC, kind of coming over from Brandon Staley when he left. They kept some of the stuff, did some Fangio elements as well. There is the connection with the Dan Quinn side of things from their time together in Atlanta, which I think should be mentioned, of like something resembling some stability maybe. So I would have Morris high on my list, yes. Lawrence Jewell, would you be interested in Manny Diaz? Maybe, but I don't think he's going to leave. Like, if you can pull a sitting college football head coach, like, cool. But Diaz is making, I think it's about $9 million a year or something close to it. Maybe it's not as high than that. Maybe it's more like 7 or 8 because Duke's private, so like it's tough to actually figure out like what the contract really is. But I know the school reported on their taxes, like I think it was $9 million on their forms. That was 2021. I actually disregard. I don't know what he's making at Duke, but it's not publicly contracted. I feel like he's too expensive in the end. Who do you guys want as the Cowboys defensive coordinator? Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Going to sip my water here. Who do you want as DC? Yeah. Someone said me. No, not doing. Is there spaces? I mean, they're in there. They're just behind. They're below Raheem. Weird. Someone said hire Clayton, hire themselves. Raheem Morris, Al Harris, Flores, plain and simple. I don't think Todd Bowles will become available. I think that would honestly be kind of dirty by the Bucks to send him out there and do the press conference and then hire him. I don't know. I just think I don't think he gets fired. I think he gets fired next year, though. Kind of feels like that's not going to last. Jim Leonhard or Christian Parker. Parker's on my extra list. That's a good deep cut name there, Peyton. Jim Schwartz. Jim Schwartz. Sorry. Jim Schwartz. Someone said Shadur. They didn't Eberflus. The Cowboys, they let him do his exit interviews, and then they fired him. So be it. And yes, that's good. Jim Schwartz again. I would consider a college DC. It is a different game, though, and I would have some questions about like how that would play out and fit. But I would be open to having that conversation. All right, folks, as a reminder, if we get enough entries, we're going to do the Venmo 50-50 Big Ballers Only raffle. $50 to enter. I'll put the link to my Venmo in the live chat as well. Need at least 3 to enter. So at What Going Downy for the Big Baller 50-50 Venmo raffle. That's at What Going Downy on Venmo if you guys want in. Pedro's out of pocket in the chat. You guys are funny. At What Going Downy for the Big Ballers Only Venmo 50-50 raffle. Get to CJ DeYoung's the third latest $10 super chat. Says Dan Quinn when he gets fired on Black Tuesday. Damn it, not happening. They're gonna a bad year with Washington. They're certainly not going to move on from there. Got them to the NFC Championship game. It's just it's funny and it's fun. I do it, but they're not going to. The Commanders, honestly, in this head coaching environment, I don't know if you want to be out there, frankly. Troy's got a sticker, just says, thumbs down, nope. I don't know who that's about then. Could be about anybody. So, get your votes in, with everything there. Next up, coming up here in just a second, we're going to run through my top candidate list. This will be available on demand, by the way, later this afternoon here on the Cowboys Report, so you don't have to worry too much there. We're going to run through, we'll keep revisiting the news on Matt Eberflus being hired. Replacements, after replacements, a mailbag. We'll, again, spend some time around other stuff there, but that's coming up here on the Cowboys Report. The Dallas Cowboys have officially fired Matt Eberflus as their defensive coordinator. As promised, we're going to run through my top defensive coordinator candidate list, which the Cowboys have to get right. I've got my top 10, plus a bunch of additional names to monitor and some names that I actually don't want to have at all. So what is your confidence level in the Cowboys hiring a defensive coordinator? Scale it for me from 1 to 10. 1, the low end, 10, the high end. Let me know in the comments right now. Number 10 on my list, and I really thought about Carl Scott here in particular, one of the Seahawks assistant coaches, guys like Christian Parker as well. But I wanted to mention Gus Bradley, in part because I am curious to see how the Cowboys approach this defensive coordinator search. They almost exclusively hire former head coaches to be their DC. Gus Bradley fits that mold. He has been a head coach with the Jags, has been a multi-time defensive coordinator, Seattle, LA, Las Vegas, Colts, is currently the Niners assistant head coach, and is borderline the DC in waiting if Robert Saleh ends up getting a head coaching job somewhere. But he's also been a bit of a retread. And I don't know if that's the best path this Cowboys team should be pursuing. By the way, despite Seahawks and Jags spots that Schottenheimer also worked, they did not actually overlap. I'm going to put Clint Hurtt here at number 9. There is a background of him being a former defensive coordinator. He was the Seahawks defensive coordinator from 2022 to 2023, now working again under the Vic Fangio system, which I like as a defensive schematic. It works very well. Not as good when it's not Fangio, but works pretty well overall. Also of note here, I think, emphasis on think, see how it actually plays out once the interviews start rolling in, that this will be a heavy Brian Schottenheimer influence coaching search. Unlike when the front office hired Matt Eberflus, I think Schotty's going to have a much more impactful view of the input on the defensive coordinator search. He did overlap with Hurtt in Seattle when Schottenheimer was there, when Hurtt was the defensive line coach. So there is a built-in connection there. Who do you want as the Cowboys' next defensive coordinator? A lot of names still to get to, some of which will be in the comments and on the list as well. Let me know. Who do you want to hire as the Cowboys' next defensive coordinator? One of the very few non-former DCs or former head coaches on this list is Aubrey Pleasant, the Rams passing game coordinator, who, if Chris Shula gets hired, the Rams sitting DC as head coach, he might be in line to get that Rams DC job. He's bounced around. Was with the Washington Commanders for a little bit, 2014, 2016. Got fired by the Lions in 2021, 2022, but he's had plenty of interviews in the past. It took a year off to go be a Packers offensive consultant, which the McVay tree likes doing in general. Now is the Rams passing game coordinator. That is a defensive role, by the way. I expect to hear his name as an interview candidate for multiple teams. We'll see if the Cowboys are on that list. Number 7, and this is still technically under contract, I believe, so you'd have to be granted permission, but when the head coach gets fired, they don't hold on to the DC and block him from going somewhere else. Dennard Wilson, who, by the way, briefly overlapped with Brian Schottenheimer. Before he took the Rams DB's job in 2015, he was a quality control coach on that staff alongside Brian Schottenheimer. He's been with the Jets, More importantly, the Eagles and the Ravens. The Titans defense has a history of struggling down the stretch, but the offenses have been terrible in those seasons. When they've been healthy and not getting hamstrung by the offense being horrible, Tennessee's defense has actually been borderline good at times. So an available head coach or DC, I think, is worth mentioning. This episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend, hoops action every night, the action never stops. And PrizePicks lets you take control. They now offer early payouts. Get off to a hot start with one of your players. You might have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Some playoffs, PrizePicks. You can do power play or flex play. Get one wrong, still cash out. Colston Loveland, more than a half touchdown. DJ Moore, more than a half rushing yard. Drake May, more than 236.5 passing yards. Check out the new social feeds feature. You can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy laps with a simple click. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. The top 6 is where I think there will be a lot of I like that guy from the comments. Al Harris is on my list, and I want to spend extra time on Al Harris. Look, if you're not a general NFL fan, you might not know who Clint Hurtt is. You might not know who Aubrey Pleasant is, or even Dennard Wilson, and that's fine. We all know who Al Harris is because he was a former Cowboys assistant. He spent time in Dallas. And had a lot of success as a Cowboys defensive backs coach, even getting the assistant head coach title added to him for 2024. It wasn't always a coach, had a bit of a break before Mike McCarthy brought him in. He is currently the Bears defensive backs coach. And there's 2 things I want to point out about the Bears defense. They get takeaways. That matters because the Cowboys did not get takeaways this year. They also allowed a lot of passing yards again. That defense, down to down, hasn't been good unless they're getting takeaways, frankly. I think Al Harris, I think especially living under Dennis Allen, will benefit him. I think he's worthy of getting defensive coordinator interviews. I would not just give him the job, though. I don't think that's a good idea. I think you have to do a real search and not just hire someone you know, but I would interview him. I know Brian Broaddus had mentioned that the Cowboys front office thought he was a bit too lax with some of the discipline stuff in his DB's room and led to some issues with Diggs potentially, but I would still give him an interview. Now, assuming you do a real search and you like the interview stuff, that's part of this, would you hire Al Harris? Y for yes, N for no, let me know in the comments section of today's show. The top 5 is where I really get like, okay, these guys, I'd be on board with here. First up is Jeff Ulbrich, the Falcons defensive coordinator. And this, I think, is very much a name we should keep our eyes out for. And I think this is someone who is going to be a very real candidate for the Dallas Cowboys. He spent this past year as the Falcons defensive coordinator. Before that, he was the Jets' briefly interim head coach and was the Jets' defensive coordinator when that defense was actually pretty good. If you are interested in trying to get something that kind of sort of resembles some continuity, the coaches that Jeff Ulbrich have worked under, obviously Raheem Morris in Atlanta. The Jets was obviously Robert Saleh. And if you wind back to his Falcons tenure, that just so happened to be Dan Quinn. So you have the Aaron White-Cotton connection. You have a Falcons defense that they got some more talent this year. I thought was actually kind of good. And they do a lot of the things, and we'll go more in depth on him and Raheem Morris if they get interviews. A lot of different looks. They were not just a cover 2 defense. They did a bunch of Fangio principles. They disguised some stuff. They did some blitzes. I actually really like the schematics that I saw out of the Falcons defense, and the Jets defense was so good too. Now, he's only worked under defensive minds as head coaches. That is worth mentioning here, but I think he is a prime option and can be interviewed whenever since that staff is, fired. Number 4, and I'm cheating with several different names on this list here, and that is insert your fired head coach here. And there's 3 names I'll mention as of filming. Todd Bowles has not been fired. If he gets fired, shortly go revisit that one. Pete Carroll, I'll mention. I don't want to do that, though. 75 years old next year. Hasn't been a DC in 30 years. I'm out. I don't want to do that. I get the Schottenheimer connection. If he wants to come hang out and be a sounding board, sure. But I'm not. That was so much worse than I ever thought it'd be in Las Vegas. I'm out. Gannon was, I think, not better than what Eagles fans thought he was as a DC. I think Nick Rawls, his DC as well in Arizona, decent name to monitor there. I think Raheem Morris is going to get some head coaching interviews, so he'll probably want to wait. But he also just could go back to the Rams if Chris Shula leaves. I think that's an under-the-radar conversation there. Morris and Gannon would be on my interview list. If Morris wants to try to get a head coaching job, sure. But I liked what it is the Rams DC and the Falcons head coach. I thought the defense got better overall. Also, one more note here, not on our list elsewhere. Mike Rutenberg was the Falcons passing game coordinator. If you hire Ulbrich or Morris, I would bet in some capacity there's a chance he's on the staff. I don't love that as a DC hire because there's 2 guys above him that are available, but I think it's a name to monitor too. Number 3 is Jim Schwartz. And as weird as this sounds, I might not rule him out as just the next Browns head coach. I think that's a possibility there. The Browns would love to keep him. He fits what the Cowboys like. He's a former head coach. Did that job with the Detroit Lions. Has been a multi-year defensive coordinator. He runs a 4-3 front. Now, they did more cover 1 stuff. When they blitz, it's more creative. I've also seen him have good defensive coordinator jobs and do a good job when it's not just Myles Garrett. So I don't want to give it all to Garrett, although that certainly has been a huge factor in that conversation. But I think Schwartz is a prime candidate for this team. Fits what they typically like, and I would have interest in as well. Number 2 is a guy I'm all over. And you can go back to I think it was our Mike Nolan replacement video back in 2020. He was on the list. That's Jim Leonhard, who is currently the Broncos passing game coordinator, has the head coach title as well. Most known probably for his job as the Wisconsin defensive coordinator. There is a connection, by the way, with Brian Schottenheimer. After, I think John O'Neill reported there was a quiet conversation that happened between Leonhard and Schottenheimer last year, like an interview potentially. Leonhard, in his playing days, played for the Jets, while Schotty was the head coach. He can be interviewed during the Broncos bye week tomorrow, Wednesday. The timing of firing Eberflus helps facilitate that as a potential interview. He is very high on my list. But number 1, Brian Flores. And I don't know how doable this one is. But even though I said do a real search, which you're going to have to do because you have to wait out Flores if that is the name here, I would do it in a heartbeat. Like, I'm just hiring him. You got to fix your defense. You got to overhaul personnel. That's fine. You have to do it anyway. He was the linebackers coach / DC and play calling duties, not in title, back in 2018, 2016. He's done a fantastic job with the Minnesota Vikings. Big name media members such as Mike Florio and Diana Rossini linking Flores to the Cowboys job. I have 2 thoughts on that. Look, Flores is on an expiring contract. Unlike the other sitting defensive coordinators, Minnesota, once that deal ends, can't actually block him. I have 2 thoughts here. I would love it if the Cowboys actually got Brian Flores, because that means they gave a shit, which they haven't always done about building a staff and a roster the way that the other aggressive teams are. I also wonder, is this just Flores playing the leverage game? And his agent has gone, I'm going to link Flores to the Cowboys because that's an open DC job. It's the biggest brand. It's just like when agents link their clients to the Cowboys in free agency and Dallas doesn't actually get involved. They're just getting used to generate more money. If I'm the Vikings, why would I not just match any offer? And if you're Flores, you're going to stay in Minnesota because you know it works. There is the unknown of it not working in Dallas potentially. I will also say he's going to be a candidate for head coaching gigs. The Raiders have been heavily linked on the Flores front. That would require quite a bit of waiting. Now, Flores is available now, so the timing is a little bit easier. But you might have to slow up that one just a little bit. Other names to come here before we get into it. We will have you covered on all the latest news, rumors, updates on the Cowboys defensive coordinator search. So make sure you guys are subscribed for free. 10 names I want to mention here in passing who I could see interviews. They just missed my top 10. Carl Scott was number 11 for me, the Seahawks DB's coach. Got some college coaching background, which Shoddy has never shied away from. Don Martindale's available. He is the anti-Flus with his blitzes. Patrick Graham, fired as the Raiders DC, I assume going to get fired. It's not a lock necessarily. Nick Rawls has been viewed as an up-and-comer in Arizona. He could also stay on board if, depending on who the Cardinals are hiring. Durante Jones, if you want to go to the Flores disciple. DeMarcus Covington has done a good job with the Packers D-line. Gerald Alexander in Pittsburgh. You can throw out Gerard Mayo. I don't love that one necessarily because he's hardly been an actual defensive play caller. Christian Parker and Dino Vasso with the Fangio and Ryan's coaching tree would be on my interview list potentially as well if you want to do like a 12-man search, which I would love. Names I would not hire. I don't want Mike Zimmer. That we tried that. Let's not just run it back for no reason. Aaron Whitecotton, stay on the staff, cool, but he's not my DC. Come on. Be for real. Bill Belichick. No. That just seems toxic. And I don't want to deal with everything else that comes along with that there. Rex Ryan, you guys, you know him. He interviewed last time around. I think he lied about saying he would have gotten the Cowboys job if Jerry Jones had paid up. I think they were going to hire Mike Zimmer over him no matter what. But still, the last, by the way, top 10 defense he has had in yards was in 2014. He hasn't coached since 2016, by the way. The last top 10 defense he had in points was 2010. Been a long time since he was actually good and producing good defenses. Steve Wilkes, don't want to go down that path. Leslie Frazier got interviewed last time. That was a fraud interview, frankly. Ken Norton Jr. has DC experience, connected to Schottenheimer. Don't like it. Wasn't good as a DC. Antonio Pierce, it falls in the Gerard Mayo bucket where he hasn't actually done much as a defensive coordinator. All right, it is mailbag time here on today's show. Get your questions, thoughts, comments, etc. in. It'll obviously be extremely and pretty much all defensive coordinator focused. We don't, save your draft questions for later is what I'm saying. We don't need to hit those right now. So use hashtag Cowboys. Let me sip this here. Use hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. I'm going to get a question prepped here. Make sure I have the right list of names. We'll go back to some old mailbags if we have them, but hit that Super Chat button or use hashtag Cowboys, or else producer Aiden is just not going to be able to find your question. It's going to be impossible. So use hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. As long as these Super Chats are coming in, we will stay live. There is a timer on that one. Get to that later. Use hashtag Cowboys or skip the line via Super Chat. So I see some hashtag Cowboys. Saw some Super Chats coming earlier. We'll get to all of those as they come in. At least that Super Chats for sure. Hashtag Cowboys, in the end, you're at the mercy of producer AP to pick your question there. So, we'll keep it defensive coordinator focused with the news that Matt Eberflus is out as the Cowboys defensive coordinator. Make sure I haven't missed any updates while we were filming that stuff there. That's fine. Yeah, I think that's fine. Let's see. Making sure I haven't missed anything. No. People can't spell Jim Leonhard's name correctly. Yeah, we're fine. Use hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. Keep them coming here on today's show. Cowboys mailbag on the day that they fire Matt Eberflus as the defensive coordinator. We'll have you covered on the search, but also follow me on Twitter for sometimes funny jokes and other things. Hit that sub button or hit that follow button on Twitter at WhatGoingDown. Help me get to 27K followers. Plenty of Super Chats to get to with Eberflus out as the DC. Trap House asks about Matt Patricia. I kind of wonder if he's just happy at Ohio State right now. He didn't do a great job as like the Eagles' weird senior defensive assistant / play caller. It was good as the Patriots DC, but that was a long time ago. The Lions head coaching tenure was a disaster. I wouldn't be mad at it, but I'd be like, boy, is this going to work out? Like, yes, the Ohio State defense was really good this season. They got the best talent. Like, they should be really good. So that one is kind of like in this weird no man's land of like, I guess I'll trust you, but I don't know about that one in the end. But I appreciate it. From Drew Skies as well. Thank you, Drew. Was just reminiscing watching 2022, 2023 defensive highlights. Miss Curse, Gilmore, Lawrence, Lewis, Vander Esch. Need that defense again. Unfortunately, Curse out of the NFL because he's bad. Gilmore's done. Lawrence is playing very well in Seattle. Jordan Lewis playing very well in Jacksonville. And Vander Esch is out of the NFL because of injury stuff. Kind of sucks that 3 of those guys are done already and 2 guys having success elsewhere. So, Jim Reductions. I want someone from the 49ers defensive staff. Who are some names on that staff the Cowboys could look at for hiring their next DC? So you're obviously not going to steal Robert Saleh. Not going to happen. The names to monitor for me. Gus Bradley is the assistant head coach of the defense, but it's kind of a been there, done that borderline coaching staff. I would look towards the secondaries coaches. That's Ray Brown and Daniel Bullocks are the 2 safeties that stand out there. If you want to go defensive line, Chris Kosrick, I think is how it's pronounced, all he does is get better play out of that defensive line staff or defensive line group that's not talented because of injuries. I wonder if those are routes the Cowboys pursue, but those are certainly names that you can absolutely consider. From Bobby, how worried should we be about another new defensive coordinator? And this is a good question, Bobby. It's not a lock. I'm not going to say it can't be worse, but like it's hard to be worse than the worst defense in franchise history. I'll say this. It sucks having 4 DCs in 4 years. What else are you going to do, though? It can't just be a coaching staff change, though. If Jerry Jones goes, we got 1 new DC and we're all set on this bad boy, it's not going to work. Maybe you're not 32nd next year, but are you going to even be 22nd? I don't think so. And that defense, I'm not expecting a top 10 unit next year, but can you get to like 20th in the first year of this new DC? That's pretty significant growth if you can make that happen. So what overall here is your confidence level in this entire Cowboys defense moving forward? 1 to 10 is the scale. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Tommy Buster says, give Darren Woodson a call. To do what, though? Like, I love Darren Woodson. He's awesome. He's never coached. Like, I'm not... If he wants to come be my safeties coach or even linebackers coach, sure. But I'm not hiring him to be my DC. That doesn't do anything for me. That's not... I'm just hiring someone that I've heard of before. Like, that's not... I need someone with skins on the wall in some capacity. From CT, I know Flores is the big name, but what does Flores do that fits with what the boys do with the players we have or we're going to get in free agency and draft? So Flores' thing is exotic. Like you can go back and watch that Cowboys game. Like he's showing pressures. You don't know where it's coming from. You're doing stuff disguising covers in the back end too. You're showing a 7-man pressure. Who's coming? Where's it coming from? Who's dropping? It's built on having unique defensive schematics. Now, you would have to really overhaul your secondary. He plays plenty of zone looks off of those zone blitzes that he shows. You have to overhaul your secondary anyway, though. You can't just run it back with these guys. Like, I think you need all new safeties if you hire Flores. You can try with Revel and Bland. You need 1 veteran corner. I think he would want some vets. But even when he didn't get his personal in there immediately, but he got him to 20 in year 1. That's what you're aiming for, I think, right now. So I think Flores is at the angle here is like you're hiring one of the best and most creative defensive minds in the game. And that's what you need coming off one of the least creative defensive minds in the game. Granted, you're going to be doing the is he a head coach next year or not thing again. I would be surprised if you got him, but it would be a very happy surprise. So do you want to hire Brian Flores? Y for yes, N for no. Go ahead and sound off for me in the comments section of today's show. Today's show is made possible by PrizePicks, and now feature early payouts. If your lineup gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. Look, when you're starting something new or a routine, making player picks for the first time, something new can be hard. But in life and on PrizePicks, it always feels good to be right. With the new social feeds feature, you can share PrizePicks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy the ones you have or use them as inspiration for your own picks. This is one of our PrizePicks lineups for the playoff games this week. Colston Loveland, more than a half touchdown. DJ Moore, more than a half yard on the ground. Drake May, more than 236.5 passing yards, which feels super duper low to me. Download the PrizePicks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. It's good to be right. Links in the comments and the description of today's show. From Matt Eber, cut him loose. Why not Rex Ryan or Bill Belichick? Look, I think you can do better and not that old of an option. Like, Rex Ryan hasn't been a coach in a decade. His last actual top 10 defense in yards was like 12 years ago. In points, it was almost like 15 or 20. Like, it's been a long time since he's been good. And honestly, I don't want to deal with all the extra stuff that those guys bring. Like, this is already a circus as it is. Rex Ryan's going to be very loud. And I get that there's the connection there with Brian Schottenheimer. I would rather have a bit more just normalcy. And Belichick as a DC, I feel like he's just going to... My concern deep down is that both those guys are going to be angling to be more than just a defensive coordinator in the long run, even within the organization. Like, I don't think Flores is going to do that in the organization, but I would worry about Belichick and Ryan doing it. And I don't want a retread. I don't want an old guy. I'd like to get some new blood in there. Who do you want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. From Joshua, we need a defense coordinator who knows his players and how to use. Yes. Look, every single coach in history has said, hey, my job is to adjust my scheme to fit my personnel. So many coaches don't actually do that. Matt Eberflus didn't do it. He was not doing that. Consistently was not actually fixing his scheme for his players' talents. That is the baseline of being a good coordinator, a good coach in the NFL. You'd be surprised how many coaches don't actually implement that. If you want to do it in the offseason to make personnel changes, fine. But once you're in season, man, you got to adjust to what you have. Dante Fowler, by the way, let me pull this up here too, had a scathing quote of Matt Eberflus that Nick Harris tweeted out after he was fired, which I do kind of appreciate there. He said, and I quote, Dante Fowler, we got the guys. We just got to put them in the best position to make plays. That's it. I don't care how good you think your scheme is. You got to evolve around your players, take your players' opinions on some things, and try to put your players in the best position to make plays. Flus was not doing that. I think that was very clear. For a guy that said it starts with man coverage and you go from there and then didn't play man coverage, I wonder if the Cowboys front office, frankly, felt a bit lied to. In the same way that Mike McCarthy got up there and said, I watched every game of the Cowboys, and he said, actually, that was not true. Flus lied a little bit as well. Borelli going with the meme on there. You were not the only one who had that reaction. I'll put it that way. CJ DeYoung III says, can't Jerry write a check big enough to win Flores away from Minnesota and keep him a few years? Seriously, and go Rex. I do not want Rex. Technically, yes. When was last time Jerry wrote that check? When was the last time they won a bidding war for anybody? They don't do that. They do it in trades, sure, when like there's a finite amount of capital to spend in the first place. But they don't win bidding wars, and that's not how they operate, frankly. I think the biggest issue for Flores is I think he very clearly wants to be a head coach again. I think his next step is, how do I best get to be a head coach? If it's not this year with like the Raiders, for example. So at that point, I don't think it's the check that would keep him in Dallas if he were to land here long term. It's, does he get a head coaching gig? And I think he's going to be exploring that. I think he's going to explore this year for the Raiders in particular. Seem to be a very viable option there. But I do it. It just, I have my doubts. It's Fat Boy Roy. Can't rule out Mike Pettin as an option. I heard he and Schottenheimer are on the Jets together. Yeah, I don't want Mike Pettin. I get that this actually is a kind of a Brian Flores connection because he's doing some stuff with them. Fits their mold, former head coach. I think he was on staff with the Jets. But he wasn't that great as a DC in Green Bay when he took that job. I'd have some hesitancy there. Crimson Cowboy 72. So this is just our Bama Cowboys fan. What qualities look for in a DC? Schematics, disguise, front, development, situational awareness. Yes. Leadership as one of them. Like, can you command the room and everything else there? I do think, like, some overview stuff here. Schematics, like, can you be creative? And that kind of ties into disguises. 3-4, 4-3. It's 2026. It doesn't really matter that much. You can still do some 5-man fronts. That's more on base down stuff, though. You know, are you at this point in the NFL? Are you doing the things to make life hard on the opposing quarterback? I don't think you can sit back there and not do sim pressures, not do blitzes, not do coverage rotations where it looks like you're playing too high shell and then you rotate a man down, or vice versa. If with the way some of these playoff quarterbacks are, if you sit there and show this looks like cover 3 and the quarterback gets cover 3, you're cooked. So I do think adjustments, creativity, all of those things matter. I think good question. I think there are a couple coaches that fit like more exotic blitzes, you know, multiple coverage schemes, not just doing cover 2 or cover 4 nonstop like Eberflus kind of was a lot. He did more cover 1 as you went on, I guess. But stay locked into us here on the Cowboys Report for more on the Cowboys coaching search. We will have you covered. Alexis, there's always one Chris Richard. No. Like, honestly, no. It should be telling guys that he was the Cowboys DB's coach after getting fired in Seattle, and then took a year off when he got fired, was the Saints DB's coach, Coord DC, took a year off, now was the Jags DB's coach in 2024, took a year off. I get that he's fiery on the sidelines, and we all notice that. That he's had a tough time keeping a job lately is probably a red flag. CJ DeYoung III says, but he'd write any size check if he thought. It's the issue. He's never done it. They have unlimited funds in reality. Sell some shares in that oil, like Comstock it is, right? Sell it and you'll make $1 million, $2 million, 3, 5, 4, 6, 7. Just be aggressive. Go do it one time. From TG Collects, who out of your list do you think is the most realistic? I think the most realistic is probably Jeff Ulbrich because he is available. There is some ties to an extent on this staff. I would love one of the fired head coaches. Like I'm on board with Raheem Morris, but he's going to get head coaching interviews. Jim Schwartz, I have interest in, but he's going to get his pick of the litter there. The Browns also could try to keep him there. I would do Jim Leonhard, but he might get the Broncos job if Vance Joseph. In fact, he would get the Broncos job if Vance Joseph leaves. I'd love Flores. I think there are some complications there. Leonhard is like my outside of Flores pipe dream, which I think is number 1 there. Leonhard for me is number 2. And then Schwartz, the fired guys, Ulbrich are all like, I think you would be making a good hire there. All right, folks, we will stay live as long as the Super Chats are coming in. Been live for about an hour and a half here on the Cowboys Report. Any Super Chat that comes in over, we'll put 2 minutes here on the clock in just a minute. But as long as the Super Chats come in, no matter how large or small, we will stay live to answer any and all of your thoughts. This, as a reminder, is the Super Chat menu. Any super is a shout-out. $5 is a raffle entry for our Packers watch party. $10 is 3 raffle entries. I get a little overheated. I got the fan on me. $50 is a shot. $100 is a beer bong. And you go in the helmet of honor. In fact, with the show essentially over here, 2 for 1 on everything. 2 for 1 on all Super Chat items. There's a couple helmet entries left on the helmet of honor, which, provided the Packers lose, fingers crossed, we'll give this bad boy away at the end of that live stream. So stay tuned for that one. 2 for 1 on everything here on the Super Chat menu. Any Super of course is a shout out, so maybe we'll say your name twice. $5 is 2 raffle entries. $10 is 6. $50 is 2 shots. $100 is 2 beer bongs. We're going to put 2 minutes here on the clock. And if the supers come in, we'll hang out and stay alive. If they don't come in, we'll sign off, get set up for the remainder of the stuff that I have to do today. I've got 6 emails and 5 texts and a lot of things that I have to respond to with people and work. So 2 for 1 Super Chat menu, 2 minutes on the clock. We're 30 seconds into it. That's fun. I like that. We'll call it kickoff. It's fun. Sip my water. Super Chats come in. I'm out of water now, which is fine. Get your votes, or get your Super Chats in here. There's 2 minutes to go, I guess a minute and a half, until we end the live show. If the Super Chats come in, we'll reset the meter. All right, reset the effing meter if you guys watch Archer. Get your Super Chats in. We will have all the latest updates as they happen. Interviews will have you covered. Updates, news, rumors, you name it. We will have you covered here on the Cowboys Report with everything you need to know on the defensive coordinator search and other coaches that will probably be fired. We'll see about Nick Sorensen. I have some doubts on that front, frankly, but I do think there will be other defensive coaches that get fired. Position coaches, we'll break that all down for you. So 30 seconds left. No more supers, no more live show. It's fine. What's up, Aiden?
I see this comment here from Brandon Edwards. If they hired Raheem Morris, would Dallas then also get Jeff Ulbrich as an assistant too?
I wouldn't be surprised if somewhere, if Morris doesn't get a head coaching job, if Ulbrich is a DC still somewhere. I could see somebody else hiring him. But I think he'd be on the list. Yeah, I mean, he'd get to reunite with White Cotton. He would be your linebackers coach in that role. And probably maybe another coordinator run game, pass game category as well. No Super Chats have come in. It's fine. We will keep you guys covered here on the defensive coordinator search with Matt Eberflus out as the Cowboys DC. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. Multiple videos each and every single day. Top 10 Eberflus replacements list coming up later this afternoon. The other news item that we will eventually have is futures deals. We will break down those for you once we get them. So hit that sub button, and we'll see you guys again live on Thursday still. So stay tuned.